All right, well, I hope so, because I pressed the button.
All right. And you are sending me the link so I can monitor the chat and whatnot?
Copy thing. This thing goes to you, and this is probably the link.
Yeah, it looks like.
Looks live, looks
All right,
right.
I'm gonna grab that link.
It's extremely professional to do this after the stream starts.
Yep, I'm gonna. There we go. I'm posting it on my socials.
Oh, right.
And now I'm doing the okay. Gotta do a move here. So we need to connect all. We need to connect 6 of the monuments, or 8 on the map. Okay. Well,
I'm re-skeeting you because you skeeted first, and I should probably have done that first. That would have been the smart thing.
you know, it's usually the other way around.
Listen. Always
I always what?
nothing. You always gotta be like that. All right.
I know this.
All right. Let's just do the thing. Hey, everybody and anybody who happens to be out there already. I don't know how fast people are gonna show up. But yeah, we're doing the thing. This is our intro. We're just gonna play a little game of Next Station Paris here on BoardGameArena while people are showing up.
Yeah.
Y'all know what it is. It's a tradition at this point. This is the second time we're doing it, and that's how traditions work. What are we doing?
All right.
Six monuments and 2 double overheads. All right.
Yeah.
This is all extremely doable. I think we're just gonna go ahead and hit this. I think we're just gonna go ahead and cross this overhead, right? It was a little bit of a shame that the only card we've drawn is a pentagon, but it's not the only pentagon.
Well, gosh.
All right, well, we gotta do it now. We gotta go now.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I was about to connect center, and now I'm really considering veering off wildly toward a corner.
Yeah.
I'm worried that I may not make the center connection. I guess the scoring for multi-connects is so much lower, right, in this one.
Yeah.
Making sure everything runs through the center isn't actually all that valuable. We're not guaranteed to draw another. We're not guaranteed to draw another wild. Never mind.
Yeah. Now we did, of course.
Disregard the thing I was saying. You know what I should do? I should have a text crawl.
Yeah.
Yeah, I should have a text crawl during the intro. We're still just playing around with format and stuff. It's all ideas at this point. But I should have text crawl playing during this intro part. It's like, hey, this is the intro, and we're gonna get to the thing that the stream says it's about presently. We're just waiting for people to show up. We're just buying time.
Yeah.
Actually, you know what? Let's just close that now. And then I have to pass because I didn't leave myself a square to go to.
I also have to pass. Oop. Yeah.
All right. 9 times 3 is kind of a goofy way to score a line. That is not really what we are looking for.
Yeah. Okay. Cross over here, I guess. Why does that one have to be the first one up when it's a new crayon?
That is, yeah. It's
reliably.
It does seem like it happens a lot. The railway switch, too. The railway switch comes up a lot on the first card. That's a huge bummer. Well, no, it's fine. It's fine because the railway switch. I'll just fire this monument off of the railway switch. It'll be okay.
Will it?
Yeah, because we're gonna draw it at some point. Actually, that's not necessarily true, is it? We usually do, but you don't have to. It's not guaranteed. Do I want to? Yeah, I think I do want to just cross this. We're gonna draw the wild now. Like the moment it would no longer be good, right? All right, people are slowly streaming in, checking things out. Hey, y'all. We're gonna be talking about tabletop RPGs. Just a minute here after we give people a little time to show up.
Yeah. Oh, I should probably do something. Okay.
You should probably make a move.
Fine. Ah! I've had to pass 3 times in this game already, which is...
That's not awesome.
No. It's
not the best thing.
It's more than I pass usually.
Hey, look. The railway switch. It happened. We're living the dream over here. That's less than ideal. So the timing on that could have been better.
Yeah, no, this sucked. I guess I'm going here. It adds another...
You know, I had planned to cut across that overhead, but I guess actually it'd be very silly not to play this corner, right? Because this is the last station before the terminus, so it's not like it's going anywhere from there. So we're gonna run out to here and then down again. Yeah, that's worth a considerable number of points, just increasing the number of regions on that line. So you have pretty good scoring. Now I just have to actually make sure that I complete the second overhead, and I get to start with a mandatory pass. I do not have a way to get anywhere. I can't get to a triangle from the green starting station at all. Brutal.
I have one. I have one that I could do, and it's not what I wanted.
You know, ain't that always the way? How you doing on your objectives?
Well, I am one away from the monument one. I've done bupkis on the overpass.
Wow. What a way to express that.
What?
Nothing. It's very normal.
Are you making fun of me?
I would never do that. When would I do that?
You frequently do that.
Yeah. How often would I do that? Oh, hey Lazuli. Hey, False Ranger / Totally Harmless. What's up? How's everybody doing? I'm trying to keep myself Try to keep myself in a place where if we draw the wild, I can take advantage of it. Was going to be the end of that sentence, and I am immediately rewarded.
What if I'm just really bad at games? Have you considered this?
Yeah, I usually think about it in terms of me being the one who's really bad at games. But I hear what you're saying. So we're gonna be talking about tabletop RPGs and stuff today. This is our chill out warm up time. I'm waking up still. I'm drinking my first caffeine of the day. It is 1 p.m. In case you were wondering, it is 1 p.m. where I am, but I'm just waking up.
Well, I did let you sleep in. That was on me.
It wasn't on you. How could you have stopped me? Really is the question.
Okay, that's true.
I think I'm gonna go this way with this.
Oh.
Let's just pick up some more monuments. I am all clear on my goals and feeling pretty okay about that. So we're gonna score out this region here.
Too. Oh gosh. Okay. Well.
Wow, bi-monthly apartment cleaning. That sounds. We should do it that often. We should do it anywhere close to that often.
I mean, okay.
Listen, it's a big apartment. It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work.
What should these things? Okay. I should pay attention to what's been drawn. That would help.
Also, that, yeah.
That would help. Okay.
How you doing over there?
Badly. I mean, cheese and rice. My score is not great.
Okay, we can pick up one more region here before things end. I think individual line scoring is a lot more important on this one than it is on some of them.
Yeah.
Like with Tokyo, I spend a lot of time being concerned about the multi-connections and stuff, but I don't think that's nearly as important here. I think it's just, you really got to make sure your lines are hitting, because the way the regions are spaced out, it's so much easier to hit so it'd be a little bit more value. Yeah, I'll just do this. Yeah, it's so much more valuable and reasonable to hit a large number of regions. And
this is like the worst job I have ever done in this game.
I'm sorry, sweetie.
Oh.
Alright, so if I'm going to connect out to a circle, like here, we can hit this. We're very nearly out of, we're very nearly out of cards already. We might not draw the railway switch. My brilliant gambit here might be for naught. Alright, let me hit this then. And the moment I do that, we will draw the wild, of course. Ain't that always the way? So we have one more draw after this. It is a guaranteed wild after this.
Okay, I'll get one bridge. That's sad. Oh.
So okay, I'm not in this region yet. Yeah. Okay, I mean 211, that's something. I feel pretty okay about that. That's over 200.
Yeah.
You had a little bit of a rougher go there this time, huh?
I sure did.
Okay, website.
I'm also waking up apparently.
Websites do not need achievements, please. Come on now. All right, all the way down here, still not exactly like a record setter. I played a game of this with some of my friends the other day and got a 220. This is the highest I've ever scored, and still it remains the case that the people topping the leaderboard's like 50 points above that. Like I'm saying, I think like individual line scoring is a bigger deal in this one for sure.
Mhm.
And you can kind of passively get a bunch of multi-connections. Like I scored 21 points from multi-connecting regions here without thinking about it or trying very hard.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just I don't know where you would get 50 more points. Seems like a lot. It seems like madness.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're definitely thinking about tabletop RPGs today. Hello, everybody. We wanted to give people time to show up, time to see what's what. There is no way to. Here. The first tabletop RPG, of course, that I'm thinking about. We're just going to talk about what we like about some modern games and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, because there were people seemed interested in that when we were talking about it last time. And y'all,
Yeah.
I have so many things to say. There's so many words in my heart about tabletop RPGs, modern tabletop RPGs in general, Pathfinder in specific. I reckon we're going to start here probably. So
Yeah, she's not kidding, folks.
this is Pathfinder 2nd edition, of course, that we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
There's a watermark. There's a watermark on each of the pages of this because that's how Paizo does it. I bought these with my Paizo account, and so my shitty Hotmail email address that I give to things that I think might spam me is on all the pages. So please don't use that for anything weird. But also I don't look at it. So,
Yeah.
so if you do send emails to it, I will not see them probably. As always, if you want to get in touch, there's an email address on the About channel, the YouTube page. There is a subreddit. There is, you can message us on Blue Sky. We are Amabel and SB make stuff on Blue Sky. If y'all need to talk, to recommend stuff, to recommend tabletop RPGs especially. Yes, let's go. Let's actually start talking about this. So this is kind of like this is the only game I'm playing right now since my Heart campaign fell apart, which is a sad time. But it fell apart for, the reasons that these things do. Here's the problem. Like, we're all in our 30s or pushing other numbers later, perhaps even.
Yeah.
And it's just very difficult to get a bunch of people together reliably on a night to do a thing. Like,
Yeah. No, absolutely. Like
that's the core issue of all tabletop RPGs, and no system has managed to solve it yet.
No. I mean, you think it'd get easier because we played Pathfinder just online. And you think that'd make it easier, but actually, it feels like, from my limited experience, it feels like it's more likely for things to fall apart when it's online than it was in person. When I used to run an in-person game.
Okay, it's not been my experience.
Not been your experience. Okay.
No, there are some ways that personalities can rub up against each other and create friction in person, where I wouldn't necessarily expect it to happen online. I had a bunch of games fall apart in college due to people discovering that they just simply were not compatible. That they kind of hated each other, spending a little bit of time together.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. In my game, I had a couple of players who were married when we started playing, and were not married by the end of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, Pathfinder, 2nd edition. One of the things that I love most about this game, this is going to sound silly, but it does, it's something. One of the things I love most about this edition of this game is that they made Wayne Reynolds the primary artist. Wayne Reynolds does like almost all of the covers. He is responsible for drawing the sort of like core image of the class iconics and stuff. And I just fucking love the way he draws fantasy characters. Absolutely my favorite part of 4th edition D&D, honestly, if I have to be honest, is the Wayne Reynolds art, because he was very heavily featured there as well. There's just something about the sort of like the weird, jagged way that he does character and creature art. This is just like I fucking love this image. This is so good.
Yeah.
But also the rules are good, y'all. Also the system itself is good. So if you're familiar with D&D, Pathfinder is not a big leap. Pathfinder the original edition of Pathfinder, first edition, essentially was an offshoot of D&D. I don't want to get into the whole big thing. There's a lot of complicated stuff going on. The edition wars between 3rd and 4th edition were particularly grim. But basically, Wizards changed. Wizards of the Coast, owners of D&D at the time and to this day, made a big change, or a lot of big changes between 3rd edition D&D and 4th edition D&D. And there were a lot of people who didn't want change. They didn't want new stuff. They just wanted to play the same game they had been playing, because 3rd edition was the edition of the game that really blew up. At the time, it was the most the game had blown up. Obviously, 5th edition has well overtaken it in that way.
When did the first 3rd edition come out? Do you know roughly time-wise, like how long that was like the edition?
I want to say 3rd edition, the first 3rd edition books, I think would be early 90s. They get me asking me like verifiable fact questions that I'm not prepared on, so thanks for that.
Sorry,
I'm looking now. I'm looking stuff up because I think the Wizards of the Coast sale was like 95, 96, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
So it would have been D&D would have 3rd edition would have been out for a couple of years by that point.
All right, and then 4th edition comes around.
Okay, I'm super wrong. 2000. The 3rd edition is 2000.
Okay.
The Wizards of the Coast sale is like 2003-ish. Yeah, no, what am I talking about? 1990. I would have been 10 in 1995. What am I saying? That's definitely wrong. Those first numbers don't comport with my lived experience at all. Yes, the TSR, the original publisher of D&D, went out of business for a whole bunch of reasons. Some of them related to the way D&D was managed through AD&D 2nd edition. Some of them related to other projects. Of course, TSR tried to publish a hobby game themselves called Dragon Dice.
I'm familiar with Dragon Dice.
A collectible card game, except not cards, dice. A CDG. For the record, I have a bunch of Dragon Dice. That game is rad, but it did not catch on. It did not catch on, and it was much more expensive to produce than Magic was, I believe. And so they were consumed by their main hobby space rival, basically the up-and-coming Wizards of the Coast, which was powerful at that point, but certainly not as powerful as it would become. And a bunch of people didn't want to do the new thing. Anyway, Amabel, asking me questions, distracting me from my story. And also, at the same time that Wizards released 4th edition, they changed the rules of the OGL, the Open Gaming License.
The license, yeah.
They made it harder for people to publish third-party content for the game and profit off of it. So Paizo, who at the time, up to this point through most of 3rd edition, had been publishing Dungeon and Dragon, the two magazines, Dragon and Dungeon, was like, what the hell? That's our whole business model. Fuck you. And so they put out their own role-playing game, Pathfinder, which was basically just the 3rd edition rule set continued. And they said, well, if you won't let us play in your new thing, then we'll just continue to run. We'll just take over your old thing.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, people got to eat.
Yeah.
Also, inexplicably, some people like the 3rd edition D&D rule set.
Oh, yeah. See, so I think this is this a good time to get into...
No, absolutely not.
What you think of D&D?
So here's the thing. Here's the thing about the 3rd edition D&D rule set, though, in a very real way. It is broken way down in its core. There are some issues that you just can't fix with errata and rebalancing. And Paizo eventually came to that conclusion too. And thus we get this Pathfinder 2nd edition, where they break very seriously from those rules, rebuild the game sort of from the core concepts to try to make it a little bit more balanceable, a little bit more long-term functional. And it's rad. It's rad. They did a great job. I think it's really interesting actually to put Pathfinder 2nd edition and D&D 4 next to each other and look at the ways that basically both teams identified a lot of the same core issues with the D&D 3 rule set and the different ways that they tried to fix them. And also in some cases the similarity of the ways that they tried to fix them. So Pathfinder 2, it's gonna, it has a lot of D&D feel to it. There's a character sheet at the back of this book, right? There's always a character sheet at the back of the book. Yeah, so you have your this is the remaster, basically Pathfinder 2.5, more or less, because modern Wizards of the Coast also tried to pull some bullshit and change the rules of the OGL on Paizo yet again.
Okay.
And so they released a remastered version of the game that removes even more D&D from it and rethinks some of the concepts. So you can see, like, you still have the same 6 D&D attributes that you're used to, but we no longer track a raw value. We just track a modifier. Your character is just like +1 strength, +2 dexterity, whatever, because there's no reason really for you to keep track of, like, I have 12 dex, and that means my dex modifier is +1, and everything in the game system just uses the modifier, and it never matters that your dex is 12, right? Except to generate that +1. But aside from that, it's a very similar game. You got your hit points, you got your movement speed, you got your list of skills that's going to look familiar to any D&D nerd. The whole character sheet. The whole character sheet's going to look pretty familiar to any D&D nerd. You got your class and your feats and your level. But the system varies in some really important ways. So first of all, like, one of the core things I really love about Pathfinder is the way it handles success. So I'm just real quickly looking here. Where does this? I could have spent more time with this rule book. Where does this rule book talk about the 4 degrees of success? Because the game is mostly about. For those of you who maybe are not familiar with D&D, the core conflict resolution mechanic is you roll a d20, you add some appropriate modifier, you compare it against a target number, sometimes known as a difficulty class, despite the fact that that term is much less clear than target number.
Yeah.
Difficulty class. Terrible stuff. And if the value that you rolled plus whatever appropriate modifiers equals or exceeds the difficulty class, then you succeeded at the thing. A thing I like a lot about Pathfinder is that in D&D, generally speaking, if you roll a natural 20 on the die, you get a critical success. And in some rule sets, there's a similar idea where if you roll 1, you get a critical failure, although that is not canon rules in every edition. It's something that people often sort of patch in if it's not part of the rules, because just like it makes symmetrical sense, and
it creates some dramatic.
Yeah, in Pathfinder, you get a critical success or a critical failure by beating the DC by 10 or more, or failing the check by 10 or more. So you create these this sort of like a band of success and failure, and it means that characters that are really good at things can get much more likely to critically succeed at those things. In D&D, you can see a little bit of that often in like the combat system, where like a very melee focused character will get some kind of like expanded crit range or something. And I don't want to pretend that like Pathfinder is a not combat game, because it is first and foremost a game about fighting monsters, but it definitely does a lot to sort of like erase some of the lines between combat and the other mechanics. Make things function a little bit more consistently, and so it's much more sensible to get like a critical success on a crafting check or medicine check or whatever. Anything you might do functions according to these same 4 degrees of success rules, and almost everything has a special way that it functions on a critical success or critical failure, and I think that's just a cool core design. It is much better at representing a range of outcomes.
Yeah, and it's a very streamlined approach. Like it really highlights the way everything in this game, from my perspective, kind of makes sense together and fits together. Whereas if you look at D&D, it's just things piled on top of each other because it's all vestigial design. Like you're talking about why does your dex matter?
Yeah, your dex matters because it mattered in 1977, right?
Yeah, and I don't
want to spend the whole
sure.
stream going like D&D bad, because that's not what it's about. At a very core level, I simply don't care about D&D. But it's very difficult to talk about Pathfinder without talking about D&D because of the way that it is essentially an offshoot. The way that it grew out of 3rd edition.
Yeah, and I agree that just like the fact that this is done from the ground up, I think it just results in a very cohesive game. And I see you have the actions. You're on the page with yeah. So this is the good part.
This is the good part. Okay.
This is one of the good parts.
So, this is another big change. Another place that it breaks from D&D is that there are no longer types of actions in D&D, and a lot of the systems that emerged from D&D, and a lot of the like OSR stuff that comes out of OD&D and whatnot. You have this idea of like standard actions or major actions, some kind of big action that represents like attacking someone, and then these like smaller like minor actions. Right, that you use to, I don't know, drink a potion or something like that. And movement sometimes is not an action type at all. Sometimes you just get a certain number of feet of movement during a turn to spread out as you will in like a Shadowrun kind of way, or movement is its own kind of action. And then you get into this messy stuff where like you're upgrading or downgrading action types, and the system can get into a lot of trouble this way. You can see the places where the balance broke on this in D&D for sure. Even in 4th edition, there definitely was some amount of abuse going on with like converting action types to other action types to be able to attack more than the system intended or whatever. Pathfinder, actions is just actions. Everybody gets 3 actions every combat turn. And that allows them to tweak the cost of things in a more granular way. You know, a normal attack is 1 action. A particularly powerful attack might be 2 actions. Like a really, really powerful attack might be 3 actions. And that way you can create things for characters to do that have a much broader range of efficacies without breaking everything. Like one of the core issues of the games in the D&D lineage is spellcasting, right? You end up with your linear fighter quadratic wizard problem, where you can keep stacking more attacks on top of what the fighter does. Like, the fighter, when he attacks, it's like, I don't know, it's 4 attacks or whatever. But it's never quite the same as Cloud Kill.
Okay.
So this gives you the ability to, like, by making spells multi-action activities, and of course by engaging in a little bit more kind of 4th edition-y design when it comes to your martial characters, you can do a much better job of creating a diversity of things for people to do without making one class just like out and out way more powerful, both in a sort of a vertical and horizontal way than the other classes, right? Because this is always the problem that D&D has had, and it's less true in 4th edition than in any other edition, but it's not true in 4th edition. The casters kind of they scale both up in effectiveness, but also kind of sideways in terms of versatility and utility. while your fighter's
Yeah.
just like, oh, but I could attack 4 times. Fucking rad. Pathfinder also includes a ritual magic system, a non-class based magic for non-combat type spells, which is an idea that it took from 4th edition, and that helps to alleviate that as well. You know, if the wizards, if the spellcasting class has dominion over non-combat magic, it makes it really hard to justify the presence of other people in the party when, like, just like having a couple of different kinds of wizards around is so good. You can solve so many problems in so many creative ways. Does anybody need to hit anything with an axe 4 times? I don't know.
Yeah, it's kind of like Angel Summoner and BMX Bandit.
It is a little Angel Summoner and BMX Bandit. That's a very good point. So yeah, there's a lot of mechanical stuff going on, but like going back a little bit to the Wayne Reynolds of it all, like it's not just literally the art. There is an element of tone to the design of the Pathfinder world that I really, really, really love. That kind of stuff will get me in the door and will keep my attention. And I'm not gonna say that, like, again, I don't want to spend the whole stream being like rah, D&D, but like making Forgotten Realms the core setting of D&D. First of all, deciding that D&D would have a core setting, I think was a bad idea. But making it fucking Forgotten Realms is just like, what if you wanted your game to be the most default? I don't know. There's people like Forgotten Realms. I don't dislike Forgotten Realms. I don't want to, like, you can tell how leery I am of saying anything that's going to get anybody mad at me.
There's something that's really adorable
Because it's not what it's about. It's about love. It's about sharing the love. But part of what I love about this game is that it's not doing things a certain way.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, if you want to have a core setting for D&D, it should like be Eberron or something like that, you know?
Yeah. Eberron's really rad.
Yeah, make it something where like it's about what makes the game unique and interesting instead of what makes what about the game is not unique, which is kind of like what Forgotten Realms is. Forgotten Realms is the most default Tolkien ass.
Yeah.
But everybody loves fucking Drizzt Do'Urden. So yeah, a thing that I really appreciate about Pathfinder, or a thing I really appreciate about the direction they've gone with Pathfinder 2. This is not Pathfinder's world map. This is a portion of Pathfinder's map. Pathfinder's world map has a basically the real world kind of shape in like the same way as the Warhammer Fantasy does, where it's like it's different, but you can kind of tell. Like, this is definitely Pathfinder Europe here, right? And then down here, Garund is Pathfinder Africa. And in 1st edition, they spent most of their time developing this stuff, right? You know, a little bit of development about the northern part of Garund, but it's mostly like, how are we going to get all the knights and the dragons and the castles and shit in here? And with 2nd edition, they've taken such a broader view to the world in general. They've spent way more time developing Garund and recently Tian Sha, the sort of the Pathfinder equivalent of East Asia. And like we scrolled past the quick class tables here and stuff, the quick ancestry and class table, but like Goblin and Orc and Leshy are core ancestries. So there's just like, there's so much more willing to step outside of like the very default vibe of this sort of like high fantasy sword and sorcery shit. The elves here are good and like properly good and alien. They're like kind of weird, unsettling creatures. Gnomes are not a core ancestry, but they're also very weird. And D&D, I think, has done a lot of work to like de-alienize the elves from edition to edition. You get modern D&D elves they're still kind of Tolkien-y, but they're getting like more and more wood elf and less high elf, if you know what I mean. Over time. Pathfinder elves are literally aliens. So like Pathfinder itself is a fantasy setting, but is very aware that like it is a world in space, and you get sci-fi very quickly when you start zooming out, right? Because that's just the nature of fantasy set in space. Star Wars is not science fiction, but it feels like science fiction in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
So there are a lot of like several of the races on Galarian. Galarian is the name of the planet. Several of the races on Galarian are literally alien races. The elves are from a different planet in the solar system. The gnomes are even weirder than that. The gnomes are from a different plane. The rat folk are from a different planet. There's a great big, actually one of the core features of one of my favorite areas of Galarian is up here in Numeria, like right about where my cursor is right now. I hope my cursor is visible on the stream. I think it is. There's a great big, there's a mountain called the Silver Mount that is actually the remains of a crashed capital spaceship. And a lot of the sort of things in the area are descendants of the survivors of the big spaceship disaster. And that's, you have obviously like a lot of interesting technological stuff going on with that. And it's just like, it is a really broad, diverse setting. And I don't just mean that in terms of the people, although they do go a long way out of their way to have a diversity of, they use the word ancestry instead of race, but there's still, because there is still a concept of race as we have it, right? Like some people are from Cheliax, some people are from, fantasy Spain or France or whatever. And some people are from fantasy Africa, and some people are from fantasy India. And you're still going to have all of the things that come from that, all of the tensions and friction is the word I want.
Frictions.
Yeah. They come from that. And it's a lot easier to acknowledge that stuff and like deal with it if you're not double loading the word race to mean species. So you have these ideas of ancestry, but it's also diverse in terms of the kinds of fantasy tone that the game serves as good sort of like good soil for, because you have a lot of like classic high fantasy Tolkien inspired stuff going on in like Cheliax and the river kingdoms around the Eye of Dread and whatnot, but there's also areas of the world that are way more steampunk. There's areas of the world because firearms are a thing. Although sort of simple black powdery firearms, there are areas of the world that are a little bit more Wild West. There are over in Tiansha, the southern half of Tiansha has kaiju. Like that's where the giant monsters are from. There just are kaiju, and so you can tell, those kinds of stories. It's a real kitchen sink kind of vibe up here in like the realm of the Mammoth Lords and the lands of the Linorm Kings and Numeria to some extent. You have a lot of room for these like Barbarian of the Wastes kind of like Conan style stories.
Yeah, it's really not just one setting, but like a bunch of settings.
Yeah, but I think like critically, the thing that's most interesting about it for me is not even just that there are all these different settings, but that there are all these different settings that are part of the same world. And so you have the edges, you have the places where they're grinding against each other. And like the game that I'm running, one of the games that I'm running right now is set in Ustalov, which is like Ustalov itself is a very like gothic horror kind of thing, right? It's spooky castles and vampire counts and all that kind of stuff. But it's right next to Numeria, which is sort of a barbarian wastes kind of thing, but very specifically, it's a barbarian wastes with like sometimes there are laser wielding robots from the spaceship crash, right? The like thousand year old androids with impossibly futuristic weapons and stuff. And so you end up with this like at the edges of this, it's like that part of Kung Fury where he goes back in time and sees the laser raptors, right? grinding up against your vampire gothic fantasies, grinding up against the demon invasion Sarkoris Scar stuff. And yeah, it's the fault lines between the things I think are by far the most interesting.
Yeah, it's when you first started telling me about Pathfinder, which was like on our second date, I think, maybe our third.
Yeah, that's probably right. That was about when I was getting into it initially.
You were telling me about the world of it, and like it reminded me a lot because I'm like a big comic book nerd, right? And what I love about like superhero comics is that they're not just one genre. Now maybe if you're making superhero movies, they're all one genre, but if you're making comics, they are
okay.
There are all sorts of different stories, all sorts of different tones, and all these things existing side by side. Just like in our world, we have all these things that exist side by side, and as you said, grind up against each other. You know, things that are ridiculous, things that are sad, things that are sublime, and it feels lived in. It feels like a world instead of like a setting. It feels like there are people in it and cultures instead of just, you know, being a place for us to go on adventures.
So while you're talking, I'm just paging through the book about like the Central African like jungle area, Central Garundian jungle area, which is known as the Mwangi. They just like a couple of weeks ago released a big book about Tian Sha, as I was saying. And yeah, it's like they go into a lot of detail about the people that make up the places and like what the cultures are like. And it's the fact that the game is, you know, the second edition of a thing that existed for, you know, 14 or 15 years or whatever, before it flipped over, means that there's a lot of extended lore for them to draw on. It's a place that's already been iterated on a lot. And they can do both distant history as well as like, since we last looked, here's how things have changed. And it just means that there's a lot of detail kind of all over the place. There's so much everywhere, except for Central Asia. the area of the game world that would be approximately like, you know, India and stuff is very underdeveloped. And I imagine that's where they're turning their eye toward next. But I know they felt the need to go back and fix some of the shitty stuff. Cause like when Pathfinder first came out, first edition Pathfinder, it definitely had a reputation for being like the edgy D&D. And there was let me be clear, a perfectly reasonable, well-earned reputation for being the edgy D&D. And so there was some not great shit that was printed about Tian Sha and Garand that was definitely playing into some cultural stereotypes that was definitely gross. And I know like the reason that those were the first two big areas to receive a lot of attention is they wanted to fix a lot of the damage. They wanted to go back and like, you know, get a crew of like 30 writers, 28 of whom are East Asian, to go over all the Tian Sha stuff and be like, here's something that feels like it comes from a region of the world. Here's something that comes from like a real human perspective, interesting fantasy ideas, and also can we fix all the racist shit? Can we just overwrite or repair whatever has to be done, get rid of all this racist shit? And so that has been their focus thus far. I will say I see there is chatting happening. I am not paying a lot of attention. I apologize.
I haven't really had a place to interrupt you very much.
I do that. I do just sort of steamroll. I apologize.
This is you when you talk about Pathfinder, and I understood that. You know, before we started the stream, I'm letting everyone else know. You asked me like if I had anything to talk about, and like I know what the deal is when it's Pathfinder time.
Okay, all right.
And RPGs. I'm not seeing any questions popping out. Someone asked if you could say more about the core brokenness in 3 and how Pathfinder addresses it, but I feel like we're doing that. We're doing that.
A big part of the problem is the linear fighter quadratic wizard problem, right? Which Pathfinder does a lot to address with careful spell design, with the 3-action system. And I guess we can talk a little bit more about like some specifics of the classes. Like let me jump us over to the fighter.
All right, and I see another question. Isn't Pathfinder pays his own D&D with blackjack and hookers? I think that is that first edition reputation.
Yeah, absolutely.
More than.
Well, a thing you're missing there is when that person says with blackjack and hookers, they're not like sex and adult stuff. They're making a reference to a bit from Futurama. So they're not necessarily literally saying with blackjack and hookers. Amabel has not seen Futurama.
I've seen the first episode of Futurama and the one with the dog.
Okay, I'm pretty sure that Benders will make our own, but with blackjack and hookers is not from either of those episodes.
Okay.
Although I could not, off the top of my head, tell you what episode it is from.
I will tell you, after I watched one with the dog, I was like, I don't need to watch more of this. Maybe I'm wrong there.
Oh, what? Did you not think it was good, or is it just like?
Oh, no, it was good. It's like, but I don't need this.
So like here's an interesting example of like the ways they kind of came to the same design conclusions as 4th edition. You can see here these are a bunch of like the basic fighter feats. This symbol indicates that this is an action you can take. Double slice is 2 actions. It costs 2 actions to use. And it's just like, what if the fighter had as many different ways to do attack as the wizard has to do small magical projectile, like cantrip attack, right? So this helps set the fighter out a little bit from that linear fighter reputation, because it gives the fighter a breadth of ways to interact with the world, mostly combat, but his name is Fighter. It's not entirely unfair, I think. Some of this stuff is going to be a little imparseable if you're not familiar enough with the rules, but you get the idea, right? They build breadth into the fighter. They take some shit out of the wizard problem. In particular, the ritual magic system helps a lot, where it can be the party's fighter who knows the teleportation magic or whatever. There is as we learned recently when we were looking up how to bring a character back to life. There is spell school based resurrection magic, but there's also resurrection magic in the rituals. So like in theory, anyone who wants to learn to bring people back to life can, provided they're high enough level, etc.
And provided the person is not a skeleton.
And provided the dead person wasn't undead before they got re-dead. It is tricky. It's tricky to bring an undead back.
And you did warn me. So I actually played a fighter in your game.
Yes.
I played a skeleton, like a raised skeleton, who was a fighter. Her name was Claire Shu. Who was very good. She had a cool hat.
Yeah. The Book of the Dead here gives you all sorts of options for playing undead characters.
And you told me that it's like if Claire dies, she just turns into like bone dust and just is like gonna be dead. And that is what happened. But I really like playing a fighter in this game, actually. And I played in another game. I played a barbarian, and I felt like I had options, especially as we got higher in the levels. Like I have a lot of different ways, like you're saying, to interact with the system, to do my combat in ways that are very expressive. The barbarian had this thing where she could go into a kind of rage, which gave her like extra hit points and an extra attack action and whatnot, but did so at some penalties. And that gave me not only a mechanical thing, but like a character thing to hang on to, because why is she angry in this moment? And I would just use it when something made me angry, would make the character angry. And the mechanics really encourage role playing in a way that's very integrated, which is not always the way I feel playing RPG. Sometimes the mechanics and the character stuff feel a little separate, and they're very closely enmeshed here.
Yeah, this is maybe not the best.
There you are. You just dropped out.
I did in fact, yes, have a minor connection hiccup. Apologies.
Okay.
Are we back on stream?
We're back on. Maybe.
Okay, it looks like we're live again.
You were saying it wasn't the best example, and then
because every D&D type system has barbarian as a character class, and that the thing you're talking about is true of literally all of them.
Okay, well, that shows my ignorance.
The barbarian rage is like that's a thing that's in basically every one of these systems. Although I will say, I think that the Pathfinder does a better job of giving you like a lot of things for it to mean. The diversity of rages is greater. There's a lot more like there's a lot more types of barbarian in this, including a barbarian who is like the explicitly bestial barbarian, who when you go into a rage, you actually do a little bit of like a transformation, like you gain the physical elements of a particular animal, and that modifies your attacks in some way. The elk barbarian, who actually like has antlers when raging, is a thing that I think is really interesting.
Okay, yeah.
Just lethally headbutt people.
Okay, so let me talk briefly about the character I'm playing now. Maybe it's a better example, or maybe this is also just well-trodden territory. But the one I'm playing now, the rat folk, is a mere risen rat folk, so like created from a reflection of someone, and also is a summoner and summons the ghost of the person that she was created from. And when I came across those two elements, I was like, I can explore like stuff. And it says in the book talking about the mirrorism thing, like you should do this if you want to explore. You want to like have a character who is trying to figure out like who they are in relation to who they were, or where they came from, and like that's like good thematic stuff to grab onto.
Yeah, so I've got the class description for the summoner up with these sort of like, here are some things that might be the case about your character, like stats wise and capability wise. These are easy hooks. Like this is stuff your character leans into naturally. You have a powerful personality. You might take the lead when negotiating. You might engage with others in different ways, but like it's a charisma based class, and so you're always going to have this powerful charisma. And so, like, think about what that means. You might, this you might section talks about like these are ways that your character fits into the world easily. And obviously, you can always do your own thing, but this gives people who are maybe a little bit less certain of themselves a place to start.
Yeah,
and it gives you also these others probably. And to be clear, there are these sections on every class description, but also on every ancestry description. Others probably gives you a sense of like how other people in the world are likely to view a character with your capabilities, a character who is the ways in the world that your character is. Being a skeleton can come with some downsides for sure. The thing you're doing now is not necessarily less freaky, but it's less obvious at the least.
Yeah, but it also let me. Like in both cases, it let me. Every character I play and everything is going to be trans. That's just my deal, right? Mm-hmm. But like it let me have like character combinations of mechanisms, mechanics that let me express feelings about transness through like a mechanical basis, and like I have not encountered that in a whole lot of games in a way that's unobtrusive, that isn't like a little like 2-page and nothing against like 2-page indie games, but like it was really neat is what I'm saying. I now turn the stream back over to you so you can
Yeah, I like some 2-page indie games, Honey Heist, Lasers and Feelings. Like there's a lot of room for that kind of stuff, and I think that kind of stuff can really get at, even if you like heavier games, playing around with some of those smaller games can be really helpful in kind of like figuring out what is it exactly that I like in games, what is it exactly that I'm looking for, so that I can do a better job of looking for sort of denser, crunchier games that will fit me better. I think about like Dive Kick a lot, right?
Okay.
Dive Kick, for those of you who may not be familiar, Dive Kick is a fighting game that only has 2 buttons, dive and kick. A dive kick is the name, the sort of the type name for any attack where your character jumps up in the ground and then comes down at the enemy with a sort of like diagonal downwards kick. And so in the game Dive Kick, the dive button just makes you jump straight up, just makes you jump upward. And then the kick button makes you execute a dive kick from whatever point in the air you're at when you press it. And there are, 8 different characters or whatever, and each one of them has a slightly different dive and a slightly different kick. Each one of them has, their own sort of like take on the thing. And it's a really focused examination of this one interesting idea about spacing and approach that the dive kick represents in fighting games where it exists. And I think it's such a fascinating way of like really drilling in on a concept. And of course, like it's a fundamentally very silly idea, right? And the game's tone represents that. And it's full of like fighting game community in-jokes and stuff. You're not going to know who most of the characters are if you are not familiar with like the big personalities in the fighting game community. And at this point, even if you are, that game probably came out like a decade ago.
It's pretty outdated, yeah.
Yeah, but no, go ahead.
I was gonna say, it will tangent a bit, so please finish your point.
My point's finished.
Okay. Well, Dive Kick reminds me. Have you played footsies?
I mean, yes, but I don't know what you're talking about.
The fighting game footsies. It's just about it's like Dive Kick, but instead of focusing on the jump and the kick, it's focusing on neutral and spacing and footsies in fighting games.
I mean, like that is what Dive Kick is doing.
Okay, but this one, okay. Okay, please, let's move on.
Okay, all right. It's abrupt.
I'm sorry. It's a different kind of. I feel like it has a different focus, but I'm not expressing it very well. So, and it's not really relevant to the point. So.
Okay. So. Yeah, another thing that I think is really interesting about this system, a place I think it really is fascinating for players like me and people who have a certain kind of mechanical focus when making characters, because like I always want to make. I have a lot of trouble with lighter systems, in the sense that I believe very strongly that like the mechanics of a game, the mechanics of its expression are kind of like. They're at least as critical to the storytelling as like any descriptive words you are saying, right? In a game world, the mechanics are the laws of physics, and anything that's mechanically true is necessarily narratively true. Which means that in some of these later games, I run into problems sometimes where like 2 characters that are mechanically very similar, they just I need more differentiation. I need to be able to make my characters very mechanically different from other people's characters, but also from each other. I need to be able to express things about them in the numbers, right? It's not good enough for me to have 2 fighters that are mechanically similar, and I'm like, well, one of these is, from this place and has this personality, and the other one's from this other place and has a different personality, and therefore they're 2 different characters. Because if they're mechanically identical, they just feel, if they're the same, they're the same. That feels the way to me. So one of the tools that Pathfinder offers for differentiation, and I think this is a really brilliant way of solving a couple of other problems that are endemic to these D&D systems, is this idea of archetypes. So Pathfinder has no like sort of default native multi-classing rules. The way all that stuff is handled is through the archetype rules. And an archetype is basically like it's like a box of feats. You take a dedication feat to gain access to the archetype, and then it's just like a box of feats that represent a set of capabilities that are sort of class-like, but they're not developed as much as a class is developed. It's sort of like a quarter of a class that you can bolt onto your own class at the cost of a handful of feat slots. And this, very simply, this allows you to like grab like some bard stuff for your fighter or some wizard stuff for your rogue or whatever. But it also means that they can publish like partial class ideas that exist only as archetypes. And so you can have things like the Beastmaster that is just a bunch of feats having to do with having a cool combat pet. Right? And it doesn't have to have
I do that a lot.
Yeah, it doesn't have to have a whole class identity. It can just be like, the first feat is just like, you have a pet, here's like the basic idea of its stats, and then like a few feats that are different ways to specialize your pet to make it more expressive of certain kinds of ideas of combat pet. So these are a bunch of the sort of like simple multi-class archetypes. Does this book have a lot of other archetypes in it? It doesn't so much. But if we pull up, I believe I have a path builder window open here. Like for example, if we jump over to the dedication feats here, you can see like from the various books, this is an online character building utility that has all of the data from all of the books in it, completely freely available. I guess I'll take a little detour here to say Pathfinder's rules are all free. You do not have to buy any books. There are a couple of online utilities, this path builder, also the Archives of Nethys online rules database. The setting information, all of the flavor and whatnot for Golarion, that stuff is all owned by Paizo. That stuff they want you to pay for. But if you just want the rules of the system, it is all 100% for free. You can absolutely... this is the first edition one. You can absolutely just jump in here and like educate yourself as to how everything works. And they have they have all of the rules details, like here's what a dwarf is in our system, and everything that's in every bit of rules text that's in any book is in this database somewhere. I find it a lot easier to approach in book format, probably in part because I am very old. In part because I am old school and I've been doing it this way since I was like 7 years old. But if you're curious about the system, you can get in and learn things and try to put together a little game at very, very low cost. And Paizo even, I believe, hosts on their website a couple of like free low end adventures for people to try. There's a beginner box, I know, because they release there's like a free RPG day that's like free comic book day where they often release like a level 1 like mini adventure for free, and I think you can still go and get those from previous years. Or if not on Paizo's website, I'm sure they're on the internet somewhere because they're free PDFs, right?
We have someone in the chat asking about the free archetype rule.
Yes, this is just it's just a variant rule. I don't know that it's like super, as I'm just like talking about what's cool about the system. In general, I think that free archetype is Pathfinder characters already can be fairly complicated. With free archetype, like you're definitely just introducing extra power and complexity, and it's fine. One of the games I'm running right now is a free archetype game and the other one isn't. I think that it's, partially you want to like balance it toward the sensibility of the players in the game, the level of comfort they have with complex rules, mechanics, and stuff. But yeah, it's just a variant rule where everybody gets to take an extra archetype feat every couple of levels. So it does increase character differentiation for sure. You see a lot more weird characters that are, you know, a rogue and an herbalist and a wizard and whatnot, but it's not. Yeah, it's just a variant way to play the game. Yeah, are there any other big questions that people have?
Let's see. With us talking about those kind of small fighting games, someone asked if we've heard of Your Only Move is Hustle. I think we're both familiar with that. I mean,
Yes,
I haven't played it, but yeah. What are your thoughts about the mechanics-heavy, like Pathfinder versus games with narrative-centered design ethos, systems like Powered by the Apocalypse, which want to be more expressive to the narrative, but rules light?
Well, see, I fundamentally don't agree that they're more expressive than narrative, but a rules-heavy system is expressing a lot of its narrative in its rules, right? So
Yeah.
they're different approaches to both rules and narrative. I really enjoy some mechanically lighter systems. I only got to play a single session of it, sadly, but I was in a Heart game recently. Heart is a fairly rules light system, although it's certainly not like Honey Heist or anything. But Heart's like incredibly rad. Those games, like every role-playing game, is setting out to create a universe for a platform for delivering certain kinds of narrative and mechanical experiences. And a thing that I think I have personally learned over the years, over 30-ish years, a little more than 30 years of playing these kinds of games, is that I am much less interested in, I just kind of think they're less good systems that are either trying to hide the type of thing they're going for, or that are pretending they can be like an everything system. The mechanical choices you make, the mechanical choices you are prevented from making, the decisions about flavor and tone that are made by the way the rules are expressed, by the art that's put in the book, like all of this stuff sort of biases the output of the system in certain directions, and it's just important to find a system that is cohesive with the kind of experience you want to have. And you know, you may have very different target experiences with different groups. The two Pathfinder games I'm running are certainly quite different. But yeah, I think that it's important to find the thing that fits. It's important to find the thing that helps you tell the kind of collaborative stories that your group is interested in telling, the stuff that fits your tone and style. And it's really important not to try to just like have one rule set that you break in the direction of everything, which is one of my, I keep saying I don't want to spend the whole stream being like D&D, but one of the things that really frustrates me about like 5th edition fanatics is the way they try to pretend that Dungeons and Dragons is an everything system, and like, oh no, you can totally use it to play horror games, you can totally use it to do these other things, because like, yeah, sort of in the same way that you could like spread butter with a gun, but it's not, that ain't what it's for. You're not going to have an optimal experience, and at the end of it you're going to have to clean your gun. So
yeah, I mean, I probably agree, and I wouldn't worry too much about, you know, I know you've said like, oh, I don't want to be bringing up D&D, but like,
well, it's not about D&D, it's about the
Like,
negativity. I don't want the stream to be about I don't like this thing. I want it to be about I do love this other thing.
But you know, if I'm going to talk, for example, about modern historical game design, board game design, it needs to be in conversation with, in the context of like the tradition of historical board game design, and some of that stuff just sucks, or there are new approaches to, like, some negativity is going to be there because things are in response to things. Things exist in the context of things. And I think on the whole, the stream has been very positive. You know, you've been, I'm looking forward to you continuing to gush more about Pathfinder. I think this would be mostly a Pathfinder heavy stream.
Yeah,
you know.
I mean, realistically, for sure.
But we do have someone asking if we have tried DM-less systems like Fiasco.
I do not have a ton of experience with these. I did play a whole game, over 2 sessions of the Dark Forest, which I enjoyed quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Which is the Dark Forest is a oh gosh, what's her name? The Quiet Year.
Okay.
The Dark Forest is a essentially like another version of A Quiet Year. What is the name of the author of those? She's done a lot of like fantastic. I used to follow her on social media, but I don't think she came over to Blue Sky with us. So Avery Alder. Avery Alder.
Okay, yeah. I haven't played any of those myself. Well, no, actually, I have played some DM-less games because I have this friend, Travis Hill, who has done a number of experimental RPGs about like letter writing and emotional connection and whatnot, which are a little bit different than what we're really talking about here, but those are kind of DM-less systems.
Yeah. Is that where that thought ends?
That's why I stopped talking. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Wow.
I thought you were going. I thought you were headed in the direction of more.
No, because I played them. I enjoyed them for what they were, but also like Travis is like a dear friend of mine. So like I was like the first cis dude that I told about my business when I figured out my business. So like I'm not an impartial. I don't feel comfortable being like, oh yeah, you should play these great games. Like I think they're good, but
This is an interesting.
I'm not an impartial.
Yeah, there's an interesting sort of difference in the way we approach stuff like this. If I had a friend who had published an RPG, I would be like, absolutely, go play this thing. My friend made it. It's fucking rad. We're not reviewing anything here. We're not.
That's true.
We are not. We're not journalists. We're not under any moral strictures.
Okay. I think Travis's games are rad if you are looking for that kind of RPG experience where like there's an RPG where a loved one is dying and all the players are like family members waiting for them to die. So like if you want to have that experience, it is good, but it's not necessarily a mechanically focused one or one where you get to. It's one where you get to introspect and explore emotional spaces rather than where you get to reimagine yourself as, some kind of adventurer or something. So it's a different, comes from a different place than something like, oh, look at this cool guy.
So I was just putting some archetypes up on the screen while you were talking so people could see like some ideas of, these are from the Guns and Gears book. So it's very like, an inventory type focus. This is a kobold trapsmith here. This is what Pathfinder kobolds look like. Little dragony friends.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so those are certainly like that game sounds like a whole thing.
Yeah.
Probably a different sort of experience than a lot of people who are playing Pathfinder are looking for.
Well, that's why I didn't. Oh, look at those legs. They're just like yours. The robot legs.
Yeah, okay. Nobody's going to get that joke. He has robot crab legs. Is the point she's making. I don't. Yeah, I mean, I guess I would be curious. Does anybody remember that ad I did for the BenQ monitor light with the giant robot legs in it? The one time that I tried to sell out. BenQ contacted me and were like, "Hey, make an advertisement for us. We'll send you the thing, and then if we like it, it might lead to more opportunities in the future." And after I made the ad, it never. They never contacted me again. They did not get back to me about how they felt about the ad, which is ridiculous because I thought it was great. I thought it was
the ad. I have watched it several times.
Okay, but I guess the question is, did you buy a monitor light afterward?
I mean, I didn't because
I think that's what they were going for.
Well, see, so I would have.
Yeah.
Because you made a compelling case for it. But they also didn't give my sweetie more money. So on principle. Apparently they changed the company's name after the ad. Someone is mentioning in chat.
Wait, is that right? Is BenQ not called BenQ anymore?
It doesn't tell me what this is what Nick in chat says. Oh, Nick says that's a dumb joke. Sorry, LOL. Never mind. I got fooled.
They picked up their whole national headquarters and moved it so I wouldn't know where to find them. She's outside again. Just everybody be quiet. Turn off the lights.
Okay, we have an interesting comment here from Demonworks. If there's one thing I like about Pathfinder, is that there's a lot less of here's the type of people you're allowed to be, and over here there's all the types of people you're expected to kill.
Yes. So this is I was talking about this a little bit with the diversity of ancestries and stuff, and their sort of broader focus on the world. But I think that's worth digging into in the sort of fantasy context, because like I said, in the player core book, they express as default player ancestries orc and goblin, right? They're right there. And kobold is another fairly common ancestry. It's in the other book. But it's there. Yeah, they're doing a lot to get away from the idea of here's the player races and here's the evil races. Where's that little table? Here we go. And I was paging through it pretty quickly, but if you see in the Mwangi Expanse book, when they're developing the peoples of the areas, they're not just talking about the humans. There are all kinds of sapient creatures all over the place, and really any of them are available to be played. It's actually kind of wild if we pull up Path Builder again here, and this is the number of ancestries currently represented in the game. And you will see on here a number of things that in other games would just be kinds of enemies. Sadly, Path Builder does not include the art for a lot of these, but there's snake folk and different kinds of robots. Androids are sort of the more descended from the things from the spaceship crash robot people, where the automatons are more steamwork kind of thing. Although obviously, a player automaton is a little bit fancier than just a turnkey robot guy. But yeah, even with the sort of the quote unquote monstrous races, they do a good job of developing here's the way that these are actually people. They're not just a race of things that exist in the world to be adversaries. And you might have conflicts with them. And here's a bunch of ways that their needs and interests might conflict with yours, and you might fight them, but they're still people. At the core, all of the people are people. And I know this isn't necessarily germane to the comment, but while we're talking about this kind of stuff, I want to say that I really appreciate the degree of queerness that they've gone to great lengths to integrate into the system. There are straight and gay and bi and ace and trans and non-binary people all over this place, including amongst the pantheon of gods, including amongst the sort of the class iconics, right? Each class has a character that is the basic expression of that class, and this is an idea that they did take from D&D where, in D&D you have sort of like Tordek, the dwarf fighter, who is like the canonical fighter. He's the example fighter that is used in all of the flavor text and stuff. So we call those the class iconics. Those are the canonical representation of the class. And in Pathfinder, some of those class iconics run a variety of ancestries and a variety of races in the, again, in the sort of the real world sense of the word race, and a variety of sexualities and gender identities. There is even one who is canonically trans, and I really appreciate that stuff. And there's a couple that are canonically trans, because there's I was thinking of the shaman iconic, who is canonically a trans femme, because there's a whole dwarven sort of there's a whole tradition of dwarven magic users whose power comes essentially from their trans femininity. It's basically there's an idea about the friction of the spirit and the body that gives rise to their conduit to the magic. They're called the Rivethune, I think. They're really interesting. But also there is of course when they published the Thaumaturge for 2nd edition, the Thaumaturge iconic is non-binary.
That's rad. That's really rad. I appreciate that shit personally. Oh, me too. Absolutely. When you told me about that, I got a lot more excited about the game, because I like that there is textual queerness, is so important to me. Not just that it be a thing I can put into the game, but that is there for me to find.
Yeah.
So we've been gushing about Pathfinder for a while.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a question here, which I think is going to make you gush about something else, which is Dimension 20. Are there any actual plays you enjoy?
Yeah, okay, we can talk about actual plays. Before we do that, I want to say one more thing.
Yeah.
That is sort of pursuant to what we were just talking about. I also really appreciate how much they're willing to get just very fucking weird. Because you got your dwarf and your elf and whatnot. And Pathfinder elf is already fairly weird. I'm just going to Google image search a couple of things here real quick. So, your Pathfinder elf is already... we're getting kind of a lot of generic D&D elf here. Let me go to the core rules elf. Page 46 it says. The Pathfinder elf, like I said, is already an alien with the eyes and whatnot, and they're definitely leaning way into the fact that their player elves are from another planet, and they're from a kind of a fantasy woodland planet. They're from a planet that's kind of like the Feywild, basically.
Okay.
And so the whole rules of their physicality are somewhat different. But Pathfinder is willing to get so much weirder. For example, we have one of these in our current game. Did I spell it wrong? I absolutely did. This is a Konrasu. So a Konrasu is sort of an orb of, a black inky orb of star stuff. And then they have living wood emerging from the orb, and so their bodies are a sort of a constantly growing and shedding shell of wood that they use to locomote and manipulate objects and stuff. There are the Goloma, who are basically just the fucking a xenomorph.
Okay.
They're the xenomorph. Yeah, and I just I really appreciate that they're willing to do just a lot of crazy stuff. Some of the things are where's the one? Shoot, I can't remember what it's called. Let me see if I can. Aha, Shuni. This is a real thing. I don't know if you're familiar with this one, Amabel. The
I
Shuni.
don't think I am.
They're pug people.
Oh,
It's just a whole ancestry of not dog people, but specifically pug people.
That's good. I like that.
The Pathfinder definition of a leshy, of course, is like a little plant person, and there are a lot of different kinds of leshies. Some are made of gourds, some are made of like thorny flowers. Some leshies are fungus leshies. The cactus leshy, as you can see here. Some of them, I love this one who's like a pangolin made of leaves. There are animated dolls. There are, there are just all kinds of weird things. You can, of course, be a skeleton. There are like 6 different kinds of lizard folk. The Anadi are spider people. And when I say spider people, I mean they're not anthropomorphized. This is the body of an Anadi, but Anadi are natural shapeshifters, and not in the sense that they can look like anything, in the sense that basically they have like 2 bodies, and so every Anadi has a spider form and a more or less humanish kind of looking form. But the true body is the spider. And I think that's this is the Anadi sort of like iconic character. In both of their forms, and I think that's such a fucking cool idea.
Yeah,
the Pathfinder expression of gnolls I really like a lot. I think that these are the Colo are really cool. My first Pathfinder character I played was a gnoll, and I love her very much, and I would love to play her again in some kind of context. But yeah, anyway, so actual plays. All right. So in case people are not familiar, I don't know how widespread this stuff is, but an actual play is basically just like a podcast or a video of people just playing some role-playing games. And the ones that have gotten really popular are, of course, there's to some extent... there's a variety of veracity is maybe the way I would put it on these. Some of them are a little more planned than others. Some of them are like legitimately just, it's a bunch of us playing the game and our GM is like really surprising us or whatever. But, some of them have a little bit more plan to them than that. The ones that have gotten really popular are, of course, the ones that are not necessarily the most representative of RPG gameplay, but the ones that are the most entertaining to watch, which is to say, they are being done by people who are professional entertainers and performers, right? Of course, the one that most people are going to be familiar with is Critical Role. Critical Role is absolutely huge. It has its own like massive fandoms. I have never seen an episode, although I am, of course, familiar with, Matt Mercer and Marisha Ray, both of whom seem like they're, delights, total delights. People who have been sort of in the space. Matthew Mercer has paid his dues over and over and over again, and he seems like a rad dude. My personal favorite actual play cadre, of course, is Dimension 20, as Amabel mentioned. This is the Dropout actual play group. Dropout is what used to be known as College Humor, and so where Critical Role is mostly people who are like professional actors. Either voice actors like Matt Mercer or what's her name? I can't remember. One of the women on there is both a voice actor and she's been in several things like with her actual human face. So obviously they have the tools to put on a good show, right? They can do a lot of character work in a way that's very entertaining, and they're all very charismatic people. Dimension 20 is mostly like improv comedy people, and so they are professional performers in a slightly different way. Obviously, being an improv comedian lends itself to role-playing performance in a certain way. It's definitely a different kind of product, but they tend to be a little bit more overtly comedic. But yeah, I love Dimension 20 stuff very much. Again, not to be all like rah rah rah, but especially when they're not actually playing D&D, I really appreciate. They did a pretty good, as you might imagine, as a trans person, not a big fan of Harry Potter. Nor was I before, because there are things about, okay, no, we're not going to get on.
Okay.
We're not going to get on my Harry Potter thing.
Okay.
But there is a Dimension 20 series where they are doing sort of a takeoff on Harry Potter called Magic and Misfits and Magical Misfits, something like that. Where they are playing essentially in a sort of a parody version of the Harry Potter universe. That is just fantastic. It's really, really excellent. They did a Starstruck. Is that the name of the thing? Starstruck Odyssey, where they are playing a not Starstruck. Starstruck is something else. Google informs me. They're playing a science fiction game in a universe that is it's based on a comic book that I was not very familiar with. But that one I can vouch for. That one is very excellent. They have it is called Starstruck Odyssey. Okay. They have a variety of different settings and things, some stuff that they've come back to several times.
I watched the Misfits and Magic one with you. That was the first one of theirs that you showed me. Is it okay if I be sweet?
Sure.
So, the first time my nails were ever painted, you painted them for me, and that was actually on my true anniversary. But then every time that you've painted my nails since, you've put on a Dimension 20 thing, starting with working through Misfits and Magic. And it was really... So my association with Dimension 20 is the thing that we put on when you're being sweet to me.
So to get access
and it's good.
To get access to Dimension 20 stuff, you would have to sign up for Dropout, this sort of comedy streaming service. It's like $5 or $6 a month, I think. But apparently you can get 20% off your first year. Use full year 20 promo code at checkout. I just this is not 100% germane to the question, but this is so worth it. My subscription to Dropout is absolutely the money I am gladdest to part with every month. Dropout does so much excellent stuff. They have the actual plays. They have a variety of game shows that they run. I'm actually a Game Changer. Game Changer, the only game show where the game changes every show. At the beginning of each episode of Game Changer, the contestants do not know the rules because the rules to each episode are different. And they have to divine the rules of that particular episode through play. It's fucking great. It's so good. It's so funny.
That show was made specifically for me, I think, because that's extremely my jam.
Yeah, actually is their trivia quiz show where instead of asking questions, the host makes statements about sort of nerd properties that are wrong in some specific way, often a very nitpicky way, and you have to answer by saying actually and correcting the thing that's wrong, which is first of all just very, very up my alley, because I usually the things that are wrong are in spaces that I know about. But secondly, it's just a very funny show because again, it's all comedians and improv people
someone in the chat mentioned Smarty Pants.
The Smarty Pants Society is a new show that they've just started. There's only 2 episodes of it, and it's fucking great. I am absolutely in love with it. There's a really excellent bit in the first. It's sort of comedians create and give presentations about subjects as though they are experts on those subjects, but usually somewhat dubiously factual. There's a really good one in the first episode about which cartoon characters are invited to the cookout, where the presenter Demi makes a very compelling argument that Spider-Man should use more racial slurs. That absolutely slayed me. Breaking News is hilarious. It's a news show where they have to try to make each other break They go into it not knowing the script, and yeah, listen, I'm not going to turn the whole stream into a commercial for Dropout, but Dropout's really good and extremely worth the money, and you get some like really like high tier, amazing actual plays of interesting game systems. I do want to mention, I forgot to mention it, but actually my favorite thing they've ever done is this Dimension 20 Mentopolis. As you can see here, it has Hank Green in it, which is maybe like a draw for some internet people.
Who's Hank Green again?
Really fucking good. He's John Green's brother.
Who's John Green again?
Oh, he's Hank Green's brother.
You know, you're not always the most helpful. I have questions.
I think that depends on what you think I'm trying to help with. But yeah, so that's I've tried to listen to some like audio only actual plays, and I find that I often, despite the fact that I'm specifically usually using them to draw off my extra attention, it's not a thing I'm engaging with as like the primary activity. I find I get lost with the audio only ones. I need a little like a visual to look over at occasionally, and it helps me like to have a face to put voices to and stuff. So I've had a hard time getting into any audio only ones, unfortunately.
Well, so here's another thing.
Yes.
Okay, we are, by my count, 101 minutes into our stream.
Uh-huh.
I am contractually obligated to 2 hours is our
yes.
And
you want to try to stick to the time this time instead of going over by 50%.
And I believe apparently you clearly need a sequel to the Benno Light ad that's selling Dropout. Yeah, give her some money, Dropout. She will talk about you for as long as you want.
Brennan, call me.
But one thing you wanted to do with the last bit of the stream, as we're kind of fading out, is talk about things that we've to share things that we've enjoyed.
I know what you're talking about. I think it's just a little early for that, so I want to do one more like quick thing. Is there an RPG system you would like to like shout out as something that you think is really cool or interesting before we get to the way we've decided to end the stream?
No, I don't have one offhand.
Okay, I'm gonna throw a couple out there real quick. So I don't know that this is necessarily a recommendation, but I love Shadowrun. Specifically, I love Shadowrun's 3rd edition, and this is I feel very divided about this. So like Shadowrun is a game that was made by Jordan Weissman and the FASA Corporation. These are the same people who invented BattleTech, actually, which is pretty rad. But FASA went out of business in the 90s. You know what I'm realizing?
What?
The thing I was saying about TSR going out of business, I'm pretty sure the dates are closer to the FASA thing than the TSR thing. I might have been conflating the two in my head. TSR went out of business after printing, some amount of BattleTech stuff, and also the first 3 editions of Shadowrun. Shadowrun still exists. It's been picked up by another company, and it put out its 6th edition like a couple years ago, I want to say. I don't much like modern Shadowrun. When a new company picked it up after FASA went out of business, that new company was like, the original versions of Shadowrun are a sort of a retro future, like what we thought the cyberpunk future was going to be like in the 80s. There's a lot of like pink mohawk Blade Runner aesthetic kind of vibes. That's the good shit. When they updated it to 4th edition, they decided to slide it to more of a like what we think the future might be like now kind of vibe, and that's just a fundamentally different game. The cyberpunk future as envisioned now. Because like when the cyberpunk future, when Shadowrun was made, they were already, it wasn't like what we think the future will be like right now. They were already kind of playing in a little bit of retrofuturism, like an intentionally goofy kind of retrofuturism. And I just don't like the way they've changed the goofiness. They took away all my 80s goofiness. And it's even worse in 6th edition. It's not that it's not goofy, but it's a different kind of goofy. It's not the one I like. So Third edition Shadowrun is a fascinating game to at least read some rule books of, even if you're not going to play, because all of the rule books are written in this in-universe style as though they are posts on a BBS, with like comment threads from characters in the setting and stuff. And I think they're legitimately just like fun to read, even if you're not playing the game. That might just be true for people that are like super, super nerdy about this shit like me. That's possible. Also, Deadlands is rad. Deadlands is a rad setting. Okay.
And I will say, because you mentioned Shadowrun, I got to play in your Shadowrun game, which I enjoyed very much, and also Jordan Weissman is his name, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He's really personable, fun to talk to.
He runs if I'm not mistaken, this might have changed, but there was a period, at least in the last decade or so, where he ran a video game studio called Harebrained Schemes. And they got the Shadowrun rights, and they produced a couple of Shadowrun video games, and also that BattleTech game. I've played their BattleTech game on the channel a couple of times.
Yeah, that's
really good stuff. Absolutely worth the purchase.
Yeah, that's when I talked to him, is when those games were coming out. When I was editing a magazine. We have a question actually before we. Can y'all share one of your favorite, most memorable TTRPG moments from one of your games as a player or DM? Any moment that stands out for whatever reasons. And I will say, it's when you killed my skeleton.
You killed your skeleton. I could not have been clearer that giant wolf was not a thing to be messed with. The giant magic wolf with the glowing eyes. And you were like, well, I'm going to sort of fling attacks in its direction and also run at it. And I was just like, I can't what am I supposed to do here? What am I supposed to do? Amabel, play along, please. We are collaborating on this narrative, and you are making my life very difficult.
My favorite part was that as I was dying, someone could have used... What was that thing they could have given me?
There was an oil... One of the party members had an oil of unlife. It was theoretically possible to save your character.
And they just chose not to?
Well, it was the last one. It was the last one. They were like, I can just save her with a medicine check. But then they failed their medicine check a couple of times. It wasn't a very hard check.
Some says everyone knows canines are the natural enemy of the bone folk.
That's right. It's right there. It's right there.
Yeah. How about you? Any moments that stand out?
I've had a lot of really cool, interesting times. I guess here's one that's kind of sappy. When I was playing a tabletop RPG for the very first time, when I was like 7 years old, I got obsessed with my uncle's D&D books. He had first edition AD&D, the big three books on his bookshelf. And when we would go over to their place, I would just like pour over these books. No idea what any of the stuff in them meant. The monster manual had so many fascinating pictures and descriptions of weird monsters. And here's a little story about the kind of nerd child I was. I'd open up the Dungeon Master's Guide and see all those tables and just be like, oh man, what could these possibly mean? That's so fascinating. And just like look at the tables and try to imagine what they could be expressing. Nobody figured out I was autistic until I was like 37 years old. Can you believe that shit? Anyway. So eventually my uncle was like, do you want to, like, those are rule books for a game. Do you want to play? So my uncle Gary is the person who got me into tabletop RPGs. And for my first character, he, you roll up some random shit. My first character was a human magic user back when magic user was a class. Also, saying human is redundant because elf and dwarf were classes at that time. So all magic users were human. He, we rolled up the gold and whatever. We bought our starting items, and then he let me have a lantern for free. But I had to earn it in real life by going out into their big, ridiculous, like halfway country backyard and catching 10 fireflies in a jar. And that was rad.
Wow.
I remember this. I have very warm feelings about this memory. My character died really fast. I had like 3 hit points or something. I was kicked in half by a giant rat.
Okay.
Poor guy. And that experience was like, I was hooked. I was like, okay, this is it. This is the shit I love for life. Anyway, yeah. So we're coming up on it now. We're an hour and 50 minutes into the stream.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it would be a cool way to sort of like cool down, get us into some falling action energy here, to just like end the stream by sharing some stuff, some media or some whatever that you have been really into, some just whatever you've been enjoying in the time since the last stream. And please, folks in the chat, feel free to do so as well. Just, recommend stuff to each other, right?
Yeah.
So what do you have anything that sticks out to you as like some stuff that you have been into since the last stream? Stuff that isn't the things we've been doing on the channel that everybody knows about already.
So I saw a movie recently. Movies are okay, right? That's media?
Yeah, movies are media.
All right. I saw a movie recently, which I liked very much, called Hundreds of Beavers. And it is a film where it is like 100 minutes of sight and sound gags, like slapstick Looney Tunes stuff in live action, done very cheaply. And like, it shouldn't work. It should really outstay its welcome very quickly. But for whatever reason, it doesn't. It's very inventive, and there are a lot of like great callbacks with the jokes, like ways jokes are reiterated on and paid forward, and it creates this kind of bizarre, dense cluster of jokes that feed off of each other, and it's nuts. I will say I can't like recommend it 100% because it is very much the thing I just described. That's not for everyone. Also, there are a couple of jokes that, like, they're not like really mean-spirited or anything, but there are a couple jokes where the punchline is like, wow, this person has a different ethnicity than that person, and I don't think that's cool in 2024.
That's a bummer.
I was really bummed by that, but it's not. But it's like very mild and in passing, so take with that. I don't want to blindside someone with it,
Yeah.
But there are hundreds of beavers.
Yeah, I saw a couple minutes of this when you were watching it. I came out, and when I came back and mentioned it, the couple of minutes I saw were very like live action Looney Tunes. Slapstick with some very like, it's cheap computer animation, but it never looks like they failed to do a thing, and it's always like very obviously like the way it looks is their intent. When I mentioned it to my other Pathfinder group, which I was GMing while you were watching it, a couple of people there had heard of it and heard that it was really cool. So sort of an indirect recommendation.
Yeah, I will quickly spoil like one of my favorite gags to give people a sense of this is what they. So the opening credits don't start until about 33 minutes into the film, and then before the title drops, the character falls into a hole, and so the title doesn't show up until the last 15 minutes of the film. It's that kind of joke.
Yeah, no, I like that. I like that a lot.
Now you talk.
All right. So yeah, stuff that I've been into the last week. This caught me off guard, but Jenny Nicholson released a 4-hour video last night. Fucking horns up. Always excited for Jenny Nicholson. And I have watched at this point most of it, not all of it. It's good. It's good if you're into Jenny Nicholson's thing, or just like video essays in general. It's rad. I have fallen deep into the Peggle hole. There was some kind of Steam sale and Peggle was on sale for like $1 or something. The two Peggle games, and so I have been playing a lot of Peggle. And actually, I will just go ahead and launch this Peggle while I'm talking. In case you're not familiar with Peggle, it is sort of like honestly, like the thing people might be more familiar with now than wow, it really runs in quite a small window if it's not running in full screen. Let me see if I can do something about this here.
I'm really happy to hear more about your Peggle hole.
Okay. You know what I love most about you is you keep the stream PG. Here, I'm gonna do this. Whatcha? All right, we'll just like jump into a random level here. Yeah. So it's a game where there's a bunch of different characters. The characters don't affect too much. Let's go. What does this level look like? Let's go dragon. So it's a game where you shoot a ball and then the ball bounces around, and the goal of each level is to remove all of the orange pegs before you run out of shots. And there's a little bit more complexity to it than that, but you know, like the basic gameplay is just like, and now I can't do anything else. I just watch the ball do stuff. If you manage to catch the ball in the little barrel at the bottom of the screen, you get a free ball. Also, if you manage to score at least 25,000 points with a shot, you can see this like meter filling up on the side here. If it fills all the way up, you earn a free ball. That happens at 25,000 points. Every shot, one of the pegs is a purple peg, and it'll change from shot to shot. The purple peg gives you a significant point multiplier, so it makes it easier to hit the 25k. And then there are 2 green pegs, which activate your character power. This is the only difference the characters make, is they do different things with the green peg power. So the dragon here, Lord Cinderbottom, after you touch a green peg, the next shot is this fireball, which doesn't bounce off the pegs, it just fucking obliterates them. Which is fun.
Mm-hmm.
I'm playing very badly, but I'm just giving you an idea of what the game is.
Yeah. Nick asks if Jenny Nicholson is the one who always has a drink in hand. I don't think so.
No, you're thinking of Sarah Zed. Sarah Zed is the one who is always holding a drink. As far as gimmicks for video essays go, I kind of hate that one because she's better about it in the later video essays, but in the earlier ones, there's sometimes like a spoon or something in the drink, you know, because it is like authentically she is drinking from it between takes. And it just like it adds noises. It makes noises, and that I think is a bummer.
Yeah.
As she's gesticulating, it'll just be like tinkling and stuff, and that, yeah. I feel like she hasn't released a thing in a long time.
No, it's been a while. Do I have a gimmick?
Do you have a gimmick? You do. You have your hat.
Okay.
So I'm doing a terrible job here.
That's kind of unobtrusive.
Yeah. But yeah, this is what Peggle is basically. It's this. There's 2 games. There's Peggle and Peggle Nights. Peggle Nights is not pornographic, to be clear.
There are some jokes in the chat. Thank you, chat. I feel vindicated.
But yeah, it's fun. There's a bunch of levels. These games came out initially when I was in like high school, I want to say, and so it's just sort of a nostalgia thing a little bit. But also, this gameplay is super fun, and you know, people have decided that is, people have returned to thinking that is true, and there are Peggle-like games.
Yes, someone's asking about Peglin.
Yeah, Peglin is definitely a thing that is happening. That is definitely Peggle inspired. Yeah, go ahead and exit that. There's also a game called Round Guard that came out a couple years ago.
Now, have you played Peglin or
Peggle? It is Peggle inspired, but more complicated with this like dungeon adventurer theme, and you have different classes that and like equipment and stuff that modifies the way the ball behaves, and this stuff is cool. I enjoyed Round Guard. I think it has a little bit of a, if I'm being honest, oh, yo, look at this. This is a great price to buy Round Guard at. what I was about to say is I don't know that I would pay full price for it. Because I do think it suffers from a little bit of a lack of content. Like you will play, 15 hours of it and be done with it. But like, that's a really good price. Actually, that's really rad. And you can get it in a bundle with Peglin for a considerable amount off right now. So that's cool.
Now, have you played Peglin, or are you waiting for it to come out of the
I played
beta?
the very first demo of Peglin, and I am waiting for 1.0 on this. But I definitely intend to play it. I have no idea how far they are. It says mid 2024 here, but who knows? That's something they wrote 2 years ago. Who knows how the scope of the project has evolved since then? I try not to play a lot of stuff in early access because I don't necessarily want to play through a game multiple times. And I know I'm doing Hades 2 on the channel right now. But Hades 2 is a game I will gladly play through multiple times. Hades 2 is a game where I will have more fun with it in early access and get more out of it than most games' finished versions. So I have no particular concerns about that. Also, definitely Caves of Cud is another one where I'm just like, I'm really, really waiting for it to get to 1.0 before I go back to it. And I think they're quite close. I think they're really close.
Now, do all these games use 1.0 to mean that they're done? What do these numbers mean?
V 1.0 is the canonical expression of the release build. I don't know if the games themselves use it. I use it because I came up in software back when I was trying to work in the straight world, when I thought there was a chance that I could like be what the democratic establishment might call a productive member of society. Making software is how I thought I was going to do it. And I did have an enterprise software job for like a year and a half ish, something like that.
Okay.
Before my, various difficulties overtook me. It's tough. It's tough to have a bunch of things wrong with your brain that nobody has diagnosed or could tell you are wrong with you. And it seems like you're just lazy and stupid.
Yeah, this is relatable.
I feel a little bit better now that I have a better handle on what's wrong with me. But I still can't like actually work a 9 to 5. Less so now than I would have been even in my 20s. Anyway, that's a bummer. So what else? I have been, you know what? I didn't love it when I first listened to it, but some of the songs have really stuck around on me. I got turned on to so I like hip hop, but I have pretty much everything I think is kind of garbage. That's not hip hop specific. That's just, reality. Most things suck and are not really worth my time. So I have a hard time finding new music because I don't like almost everything. But I got turned on to this group therapy. The name of the group is Group Therapy. They put out an album last year called I Was Mature for My Age, But I Was Still a Child. That I was the first time I listened through it, I was like, yeah, this is all right. And then I put it down and I didn't think about it again for a couple of days. But like, some of the songs have really, really been coming back on me. I have been listening to it again a bunch in the last couple of days. Yeah, and today's background music, I was going to say this before we end the stream, but I saw a comment about it in the chat. So today's background music was provided by TheRelaxedMovement here on YouTube. This is 12 hours of copyright-free, Twitch-safe music for creators and streamers. Their autumnal mix here. I spent a while looking for some decent royalty-free background music before the stream, and this was the one I liked the most. So thank you, big thumbs up to The Relaxed Movement. This has been good. I have enjoyed the music a great deal as we have been doing this. I'll probably go back and try to use their stuff. I was trying to get away from Kevin MacLeod. Not that I think there's anything wrong with Kevin MacLeod, although if I remember correctly, he did say some whack shit about NFTs or something. But that's not why I'm trying to get away from his stuff. It's just like the Kevin MacLeod music that I like, I've used 100 times already, and I was just looking for something new. So yeah, group therapy. Their album is really interesting. Unfortunately, like one of the three of them left the group, like the same day that I started listening to the album. So they'll probably never release another album that sounds like this one again, which really sucks. And unfortunately, it was the one whose lyricism I was most interested in. So ain't that always the way?
Yeah.
Amabel, do you want to sing the Hades 2 Siren song? I did play it for you.
I did, but I don't remember it. Okay, first of all, I'm still recovering from when I offered to sing a song, and I said, but I'm not going to do it because I don't want the copyright stuff to get flagged. And you said, no one will be able to recognize it.
Yeah, I don't think Darren Korb's going to come after you no matter what, even if you do get it right, because they want people to stream their shit on YouTube. So
I don't remember. How about you sing it? You have a beautiful singing
there's that
voice.
thing about the King of Bones with the choral crown. There's a couple of different siren songs actually. There's the one that they play in the first couple of instances of the fight, and then there's the diss track that they write about you, that they play thereafter, which is very disappointing because it's rad and it sucks. Like you get 2 minutes into the fight and you're like, oh shit, now I know how Drake feels. No, nothing. That's not.
Which one's Drake? Oh, Drake's the guy who got in the thing, and the other guy did better.
Yeah, that's a fun reference. Okay. That's a fun reference to the hip hop beef of the last couple of weeks, where Kendrick Lamar fucking ethered Drake, and it's probably not going to matter because Drake is forever. So for some reason, despite the fact that nobody likes Drake, as far as I can tell, Drake is forever, and all of his music will always sell 1 billion copies. So, well, I'm a little curious, and I know that this is not my audience as a whole, but one last thing before we kind of end the stream, I am a little curious, like, what is the crossover here of people who are like in our audience? How many of y'all are hip hop fans? Like, how many of y'all are like in the space? The Drake and Kendrick Lamar thing kind of spilled over into the mainstream. It had crossover appeal, but like, how many of y'all are like in general hip hop or rap fans? I came up in an era when it was, so I'm a little embarrassed to admit this. Like, I got into music, and I guess it's not embarrassing. Like, I was a literal child. But like, a lot of my taste was formed by like what was popular on TRL when I was 11, was popular on MTV. I'm realizing TRL may not be a touchstone.
I don't know what TRL is.
TRL was a show that used to be on MTV. It was called Total Request Live, and it was basically like a vote for us to show music videos. Type show.
I did see a little bit of that.
This is the thing that made Carson Daly famous, in case you've ever seen.
Yeah, there was a song that the Canadian guy did about putting his butt on things.
Boy, ain't that the truth?
It became a big hit, and then they had to make people stop requesting it.
Yes, Tom Green.
Now, is he related to Hank Green?
No, Tom Green is a different Green. Tom Green and his "My Bum Is on the Chair." Yes. The Bum Bum. Sorry, yes, thank you. Liz Lee corrects me. It was called the Bum Bum song. It was indeed. Demonworks says there's a very, very specific corner of hip hop that I've liked a ton. That's kind of where I'm at too. But again, I want to emphasize that it's not like due to me having rarefied taste or anything. It's just I don't like almost everything. So like I've been into for a while now. Definitely more than a decade. Like this sort of like the Def Jux Weathermen kind of stable, and I know that that's not really how this shit works anymore. But like LP on like Fantastic Damage and I'll Sleep When You're Dead, Aesop Rock, that kind of stuff. Like me listening to group therapy is definitely me like trying intentionally to branch out and listen to some new music, and I got turned on to them through what's his face. Anthony Fantano, because if you're gonna take music recommendations from somebody, I feel like Anthony Fantano's a reasonable person. It's a good place to start, at least. Anyway, it looks like not a lot of other people raising their hands in the crowd, though. I'm not surprised by that. Anyway, I think that yeah, we're gonna wrap it up then. That's gonna do it for us for today. Thank you all so much for coming and for all the VOD folks for watching the VOD. I hope that y'all have enjoyed it, and the music and the recommends and the Pathfinder. Pathfinder 2 is rad. It is very good. Please check it out. I would still like to, I don't know. I would still like to potentially do some kind of like actually playing some RPGs or maybe some more organized kind of not video essay necessarily, but like talking about Pathfinder in a more organized way. This is very like scattershot.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I'm not promising anything, friends, but I think we're kind of hoping to do this on the weekly. I do not want to set a time necessarily, but around this time, I have a neurological condition that makes it very difficult for me to control my sleep and y'all. So like I said, I woke up very shortly before we started streaming today, and who knows when I will be awake on future Sundays. But we're gonna try to make a thing happen on Sundays, and I would like to aim for around this time when possible. So yeah, I'll post on the subreddit too about the rough plan. Okay, so with that, I think we're gonna get going. Thank y'all for coming, and have a good whatever is left of your weekend.
Bye.